Hello, welcome to Division 1 4H. This is a circuit board project. It's called Getting on Track with Electricity. So this project is going to be a parallel circuit project. There's another option that is a series circuit. Today we're going to do a parallel. So I will walk you through step by step on how to do that. The tools you're going to need are wire strippers, some wire clips, a small pair of pliers, and a Phillips screwdriver. Your material is going to come from the extension office, and it's going to consist of a board, which is our platform for this project, your battery housing, your switch, your bulb sockets and bulbs, some screws, and a black and white wire. The black is the supply indicated right here, and the white is the neutral, which is right here. So let's begin. You're also going to need a soldering iron, and I recommend that an adult help you with this soldering iron. If you don't have it plugged in right now, you should pause the video and go ahead and plug it in. That way it's nice and hot by the time we get to the point where we're going to solder. So let's go ahead and mount our pieces to the board. We will not be mounting the switch right now, so we're going to take it off and place it out of the way. We will start with the battery housing. I do not recommend using a drill during this. It's a good way to tear the board up, and oftentimes your board is stained or painted or decorated in a way that you prefer. Your board also needs to be labeled with a parallel or a series sticker or in writing or whatever you prefer, but it needs to be identified whether it's a parallel or a series circuit. And you can put that identifier here, anywhere you'd like to. Some even put it on the face of the board. That's okay too. Now, for our next step, before we attach the switch, we're going to take our black wire and bend it just about in half, like this, and then we're going to fish it up through the bottom of this switch. There's two little holes. It goes up there like that, and pull it all the way through. Once that's through there, we need to take our wire strippers and take off about 1/4 of an inch of insulation off of these wires. Now they're very small, they're easy to break, so we'll be very careful. So once we have that done, we can then take our pliers. You can see how they're rounded. Take our pliers and bend the hook in the end of both wires. Once we have that in place, we're going to want to bring our wire down this screw, and you want to be able to tighten the screw down. You do not want any insulation under the screw, and you do not want any of the bare wire out of the screw. As you can see, sometimes this is a little tricky. So take your time. It's very important. A judge is going to look at this very closely, and they're going to compare it to every other one. And it could be the difference between going to the state to be judged there or just simply getting a blue ribbon. So pull this out to the side through the wire holes, and then we can go ahead and mount this to the board. Now, straight lines are very important here, and we want to be able to make it look nice. So you want to get your wire cut over here to your battery housing and bent to about how you like it, and then you can cut it. We'll get that out of the way, and then we can peel the insulation off of this. That will allow us to put that wire through this hole, and we'll give a little bend. That way it stays in place as we adjust the board. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring this wire over to our bulb socket. And again, nice straight lines are very important. We're going to get this to where it is just above that bracket, and we're going to cut it off right there. Bend it around, get it back in place where you like it. Make sure that wire is about where you want it to be. You'll be able to adjust it at a different time. So now we need to connect. This is where things get different between parallel and series. We're going to take our black wire and wire it from here to here. Bare the end of this wire, feed it through here, and once we get it through there, we can get it organized in a way that we prefer. We may have to take some off. That way we have straight lines. If you're going to grab a hold of your wire with a pair of pliers like I am, you need to be very careful with it because you can easily pinch through this insulation. It's a very thin insulation. There we go. Now, our black wiring is complete. Now our next step is to attach our white wiring. And peel the insulation off of one side. You can start either here or at the battery housing. I prefer right here. Bend it around so it stays in place. And there you have your neutral in place. Now, before we get too into straightening these wires out, we need to solder them. So many of you have not soldered. So find a connection that's pretty easy to get to and start with that one. We do not want to melt the solder with the soldering iron directly. At this point, you definitely need to be wearing safety glasses and making sure you keep your fingers away from the end of this soldering iron. It is very hot and will bring a blister up right away. So, to properly solder, you heat up the connection and then you melt the solder with the connection, not with the tip of the soldering gun. Now, a lot of times your insulation, you want to get it up close to the connection here. But when this insulation gets hot, it contracts and pulls back a little bit. So, don't let it bother you. Judges know this. And they can tell the difference between burning your connection, burning that wiring with the soldering iron, and that insulation just heating up because the wire got hot. Again, this is where I meet a lot of kids that have never done this before, lot of times I am very impressed with the kids, how good they are right away. Just pick it up and do great. You don't want to glob your solder on there. You want to make sure that it's on there just a little bit. You don't want to be wasteful, and you don't want just a little bit on there either. You want an appropriate amount that'll look good on that connection. Again, you need to be patient. We've got to heat up all these wires and this metal in order to apply the solder. A lot of times, this is where people get frustrated, and they will touch that solder to the soldering iron, and you can tell. It ends up looking burnt. So you have to be patient. That completes the solder on this joint. Now is a good time to unplug your soldering iron. That way it'll start cooling off. And you want to trim off the extra wire sticking out from your solder. For me, there's quite a bit on some of these connections. Maybe there won't be for you. You see this right here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. We want to clip that off. Make it look a little more uniform. So this is our Division 1 circuit board. All we need now are some batteries. Those get installed with the positive side on this end and the negative side on this end. Always open your switch when you install the batteries. Some of the things judges are looking for is when this switch is closed, does it stick out over the board? In this case, it does not. It's close, but it does not stick out over the board. Something else they're looking for is when that switch is open, does it touch anything? You don't want that switch to be able to touch your battery housings or your bulbs. You can do it any type of layout you want with this, but you do not want this off the board when it's closed or open, and you do not want this to touch anything with it when it's open. Make sure everything's connected to the board nice and tight and ready to be used. So with a parallel circuit, you can unscrew this bulb and this bulb will still work. That is a major difference between a parallel circuit and a series circuit.